If you ever wanted to see an example of what a great work culture looks like, I'd place my bet on Conan O'Brien's Conan show.
Megan, in no way do I want you to feel nervous about this.
Okay.
This is just to decide whether or not you should be fired or not.
Even the comment section would be asking how to get accepted to be one of his employees. Despite being a comedy genius, he has shown that he's great with his staff and was able to connect with his employees effectively.
You routinely call me a monster. You say that I'm Irish, so all I do is eat potatoes.
In his remote videos involving his staffs, he showed that he was able to get along with them very well. And I assume, based on his videos, he's been cool to hang around with basically everyone there. And if you ever followed his shows for a long time, you'll find that there are familiar staff still working for him for a long time. And I assume they followed Conan along to his new HBO Max show. Conan's comedic specialty is self-deprecating jokes, where he used it a lot on his shows, and it seems he used it as well when communicating with his team. The self-deprecating technique is where one made fun of themselves during conversations and have fun with it.
I'm also sort of the spiritual leader for our staff of, is it like 4,000? How many people do we have on staff?
It's 185, I think.
Okay.
I think with crew. I mean, I don't know exactly. I think that's when people ask for.
I thought it was in the thousands.
But
one look at the title of his podcast shows that he was making fun of himself in a fun way. Some may think that it's a way to conceal insecurities, but sometimes it's actually doing the opposite if executed well. A study found that self-deprecating jokes help boost your confidence and make you happier. That's because the speaker had no problem being the center of the joke and can still have fun together. As a result, this helps them to connect with the people they speak to as an indication to say that we are equal. And Conan does this a lot. In a conversation session at Harvard in 2016, Conan said that he prefers being laughed at because it helps him to be humble and crack jokes at the same time. He also made fun of himself and didn't care if he would look ridiculous in public, so long as he got laughter from the audience. That's why it's easier for him to connect with people when he visits to certain destinations, because he made them feel comfortable to be around him, although acting like a fool sometimes. Plus, it also helps on being self-aware to keep his ego in check. You'll still need to earn your team's respect if you want to keep the people working for you and get the business going, which Conan managed to do. As a result, it was easier for him to make friends with people around him and make comfortable conversations with them, real conversations, which leads to better relations. That's why if you see his remote videos, where most seems to be not scripted, it's honest and genuine. This speaks a lot about his leadership and the outcome of his show business. If you ever googled best talk show, you'll find him being number 1. So in this video, I want to point out the great working culture of the Conan show. On his remote videos with his staff, he showed us what we can learn from his company, that his employees are still willing to work for him for almost a decade. And remember, if you're going to run a business, this is important because we don't want employees to be part of the Great Resignation in early August 2021 to happen again. The Great Resignation showed us that money alone isn't going to convince employees to stay. Otherwise, places like Wall Street wouldn't be having a hard time looking for new employees. So first off, if anyone wants to make a positive and great work culture, one must be a leader first.
This is a place of business. This is a television show.
Conan is a great leader. To give you a picture of how he leads his team, there was a time where his show was in a crisis in 2010 because there was a Tonight Show war, where his show was in an argument with Leno's show in schedule at NBC channel. Long story short, Leno got to keep his show on NBC while Conan had to go. When this happened, NBC paid Conan and his staff $45 million to leave the Tonight Show, though $33 million goes to Conan, and the rest goes to his staff. This means that not everyone on his team will get the shared money. So what Conan did was cover his crews and ex-crew members with his own money for about 6 weeks, ensuring everyone that they got their share of money. This showed how much he appreciates his staff, making them feel safe when the situation was dire. And at some point, Conan was hired to the TBS channel to be a host of their talk show program. Upon the hire, he asked his crews whether they'd like to join him to move from NBC New York to TBS LA. This is a huge movement, and to see that his employees are willing to follow him across the country shows how much of a great leader Conan O'Brien is. You can see staff who worked there years ago are still there working for him, and I assume he brought along his team with him for his new HBO Max show, which I hope he does. You may think that working in a show business is fun, but once again, that's not always the case. If it were, some shows wouldn't be in trouble of a toxic workplace. Leaders are the people who put people first before profit. And that is usually a very good concept to encourage ethics in a company. That they are a team, they're all in this together, and that they are working on a vision. And making it possible with the best result no matter how simple the vision seemed to be. In addition, this is also so that you can spread your enthusiasm with everyone in the company and help them to have fun at work, or at least be happy during office hours so that it didn't feel like boring or pressured and stressed. Regardless, based on the remotes and non-celebrity interviews, it showed that Conan was a great leader, that his employees are still willing to work for him. If you want to see the steps on being an authentic leader, you can check out my previous video about Kevin Feige's leadership style. With that said, one of the notable things about the Conan show is that he will always involve his employees as much as possible.
Starting off with Mr. John Courteau. How are you, John?
Doing good. Now, Jordan loves Italy, and in fact, may believe that he's Italian, even though his last name is 𝗗𝗜𝗦𝗖𝗟𝗔𝗜𝗠𝗘𝐥.
And despite being a show where it niches on celebrity interviews, his staff gained more popularity instead. This leads to my next point. Conan is being inclusive with everyone, even his audience.
You just called, this is Conan O'Brien. You called during the taping of the show, and we're trying to sort of get the show going, so I'm going to put you back on with your friend, okay? Tell him to please close his legs and wear underwear next time.
For this part, there are 3 things I want to highlight. Involvement of people other than himself, honesty, and no brags. So let's start with the involvement of the team. Oftentimes, he included his staff in his remote videos, where it showed something like vlogs and behind the scenes of most of his productions and offices.
Well, I'm an adult! You're talking to an adult!
And it showed how he effectively connects with them. Oftentimes, most offices don't share what's in the office and is classified. However, Conan had no problem showing what's going on in his office and showed it as if it's a TV show, The Office. It showed that it's not scripted, at least in what he claims and what it seems to be. It seems that it's not scripted, which means everything captured for their remote shows were real, showing the honesty of his show business, part of it at least. Nevertheless, his remote videos where they show the office works and gain more views instead. Studies have shown that including your employees in the main project oftentimes is a huge help for a healthy business. An inclusive culture can help achieve financial targets as employees become more engaged and creative in their work because they felt included. A study from Deloitte stated that inclusive culture helps employees a lot. It makes them feel safe and heard, giving them a sense of belonging in the company. In other words, they felt like a team and working for something big, and, mostly, having a space to grow. This is what I find Conan's work interesting because he told everyone that his goal was to make people laugh, which is a simple vision. However, he did it in a way that is most fun, that you can't help but feel like working for him could be interesting. At least in what his YouTube videos showed.
You are a script supervisor, are you not?
No,
What are you?
the monologue assistant.
Oh. What does script supervisor do?
That's Susie.
Who's Susie?
Regardless, it showed that even without a super strong and inspiring vision like some leaders have like Kevin Feige or Elon Musk, you can still make people happy to work for you if you include them more often, but not to the point of making them overwork all the time, of course. Your companies will have a really hard time with your employees if you keep doing that. And that's one of the reasons why the Great Resignation happened. You need to make them feel safe. Conan made this environment work. He includes his staff, listens to them, and makes sure it is in the project, even bringing them around for his travel shows. And sometimes, he'd listen to feedbacks from people who don't work for him.
My dad was talking to the uncle that told you that you needed to lose weight.
This helped his show to have a lot of evergreen content videos, and in turn, helps everyone to grow. And in his travel shows, he'd involve as many people as possible, even bypassers.
Maybe come drink coffee or something.
If I'm done shooting, maybe later on I can come by. You know?
Don't believe me.
You don't believe me?
So everything caught on tape was real and not scripted. Knowing that those videos were not an act, it also showed the second trait of this topic, his honesty. which is something needed very much in today's world where most would show fake and curated lives on social media. This is the other thing that made Conan's show so unique, because he was being honest when doing these remote shows.
There's no such thing as a laugh now sign. If there was, I'd be huge.
Unlike during interviews, they are scripted with a touch of improvisation. In his remotes, they're genuinely honest and not an act. It's also why these types of videos tend to do better than the celebrity videos on average, because the chemistry of him and the people he interacted with were real, showing a genuine connection with each other and showing how humble he was as a person, and ultimately, communication within the company was clear. Without clear communication, a company won't be able to function properly.
We blew the digital revolution because we didn't talk to each other. He said we had all the elements necessary to own the digital revolution. We owned the rights to the music, we owned the rights to the videos, we all had the stores, we had the brand, we had the loyalty of the customers, we had the technology experts, we had everything we needed, but everybody was so good in their silos that we missed.
And it seems that Conan is avoiding that, because the staff had no problem speaking their minds to him.
There was a time when I was not on the list, and I'm glad I'm on the list now.
You're just glad that you're in a lifeboat. You don't care about the other souls in the water.
Very much so, yes.
And it looks like they in turn had no problem communicating with other people in the other departments.
Every second is precious. We're supposed to get out there and do this show, but we would get started
on milk lemonade.
Yeah, milk lemonade around the corner.
And for that reason, based from his remote videos, is why his staff was able to be comfortable around him, to the point where they themselves had no problem being honest with him, making the office dynamic more enjoyable and trustworthy.
Why is this at work?
We have downtime.
Downtime? You have downtime and you take a bot? This is what detectives in the 20s did.
It didn't feel like a boss and staff relationship, but friends interaction. Leading to my last point, it's because Conan doesn't brag or show to everyone that he's the boss. In my previous video about social media, I discussed that there's a bragging culture in today's world thanks to these types of platforms, where it amplifies the contents there a lot. It's easy to get caught up to that culture when the rewards were from the likes and commenting that makes you feel good. Now, back to Conan. By seeing how he interacted with others, there weren't that many times where he brags. In fact, he rarely did that. And even if he did brag, it's in a self-deprecating way, so that it makes others feel like they're on the same level, and an openness to fire back to his overconfidence.
Maybe they're shy. They don't need to be on television to self-validate.
That's why people are more comfortable speaking with him, because he wasn't on his high horse. And as a result, shooting his remote videos became more successful because people around him were more comfortable working with him. You can see how everyone were free to say what they want, even to the point of roasting him on camera. By doing all these, the relationship between CEO and employees are closer, which helps Conan to look out for them, making them feel safe to work for him, because they know that they're important to the company. And in turn, they're willing to keep working for him, which leads to my next point. Conan made sure his staffs are comfortable in the office. As said before, during his move out from NBC to TBS, Conan used his own money to pay the crews who weren't paid during the cancellation of his show on NBC. That's why you can always see his sense of appreciation on camera.
And we are going to give you the complete Taco Bell experience. Get in here.
And in turn, they're willing to stay to work for him. Some are even still with him to this day, and earned quite a spotlight now. Even though in these kinds of skits, where they always look like they're arguing, it's actually showing another side of their employee and boss relationship, where Conan does want to know how his staffs are doing. As the saying goes, best friends would insult you in your face, but support you tremendously at your back.
Conan's a great guy.
He's a wonderful person, yeah. He's very kind and very generous. He
All
can
right.
be a real sometimes too, but he's, you know.
According to Simon Sinek, good leaders make you feel safe. Here's why.
Great leaders would never sacrifice the people to save the numbers. They would sooner sacrifice the numbers to save the people.
We call people leaders because they are the ones taking the risk so that their team may gain. And this is what Conan did during the cancellation of his show back in 2010 on NBC and moved to TBS. Listen to what Andy Richter, his sidekick, talked about what they had to do to keep his team from falling apart.
Conan is
putting a lot of his own money
Right.
out there. He formed a little corporation just to pay people to keep them, because all these people moved from New York to California.
And even to this day, Conan is still taking care of his staffs, even elevating them to be more involved with the show, trying new things and grow in the company, such as his Clueless Gamer segment, where he brought in his gamer staff, Aaron Blair. Because of his frequent appearance during this segment and his ability to be able to teach Conan about video games, to the point he too got quite popular. Because of that show, now he too was able to launch his own segment podcast of Team Coco's Good Game Nice Try, and he became even more popular now. The same goes for 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐸𝐿 and his associate producer Jordan Slansky. They too became quite a spotlight. And the best thing about those videos is that they are honest about working for Conan and had no problem sharing their minds about the work environment, even right in front of the camera.
Do you have any complaints about the work environment here?
It's very much unlike any other business environment.
My boss is kind of a
They were all honest to each other, and that's why there's a sense of trust in the company. As we all know, trust is crucial in a business. If no one is trusting each other, the final results of what the business makes won't even reach its maximum potential, or not at all, because there weren't any teamworks. Now, it's clear that Conan built trust among each other. His staffs trust him that they felt safe when working and hanging around with him, even when they were roasting each other on camera, which it seems that they enjoyed very much. This leads to my final point: have fun. Most companies and business tend to forget this part. You come to work and you do your usual task and go home. In this era we live, this has become a huge question to everyone. Is this how our life would be in the next future? But what if you can have a little fun, the way you used to during your recess time back in school? Or perhaps you're assigned to do a fun project. Who says office can't do that? Forbes found from the website Psychological Science that we learn better when we play. They found that playing at work has connections with less fatigue, boredom, stress, and burnout to individuals. Additionally, it gives room for job satisfaction, a sense of competence, and creativity. And by doing this, employees will be more involved and spend more time on the task. It's why you see Google's office is quite a playful environment, right? Now, how do you do this? Well, from what I can think of is that you can play cards before a meeting starts, or play ping pong, or have an upgrade at your office to make it look and feel friendlier, so that having fun is also encouraged. As for the Conan show, based on his remotes, you can tell that he had a lot of fun with his employees, regardless of who they are.
I know when to stop.
And I do not.
So whatever forms you have, make sure you still have fun time at work. It greatly gives an indication to the employees that it's a safe environment to work, be yourself, and have playtime. This will also promote creativity at the same time for everyone. If you're worried that it might intervene productivity, there are other real-life examples that some offices promote these kinds of culture, such as Pixar. In fact, cubicles are not recommended anymore in today's era.
It's called a cubicle. Can you say cubicle?
Cubicle.
Cubicle. Can you say confined space?
Confined space.
Can you say lifeless environment?
Lifeless environment.
If you can spare your employees fun time in the office, you can expect a couple of happy faces amongst your employees, better productivity, and they'll consider staying a little longer. The way Conan's employees did that made them celebrities over the years working and staying with Conan O'Brien. And even if they left, they grew to become better versions of themselves and more professional.
I was an intern for Conan O'Brien my junior year, and I was his script intern. And I can be very honest, people have asked me before, what's your biggest influence comedically? And I said, without a doubt, it's Conan O'Brien. He's so incredibly smart, he's so incredibly self-deprecating, but he's allowed to be silly. There are very few people who can do what they do, and on top of it, as we discussed earlier, he is one of the greatest human beings you'll ever meet. He is so kind and so genuine.
So, to conclude everything, if you want to make a similar work culture like Conan O'Brien, you're going to have to sharpen your leadership, be inclusive, look out for your employees, and have fun. By doing this, you'll have a better boss and employee relationships. People will feel better about coming to office, and most of all, you may most likely not have to worry much about turnovers. All in all, creating a great work culture.
So I was his intern, so I knew his whole crew, his whole operation, and as I'm walking down the hallway, I'm seeing all these people who used to be my boss now clapping and saying welcome and congratulations. And then at the end, if you go back and watch the interview, which everybody can do thanks to the internet, you can see that I actually end up tearing up because at the end he takes a moment in the segment to say how proud he is of me, and I'll never forget it.